Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. Happy Thursday. Ari, I made a Wendy's Sauciest Take. We are, of course, presented by Wendy's. I made a Wendy's Sauciest Take of the week this week that at least two undefeated teams will lose this week. One of the ones I said was not going to lose, lost last night. Liberty, which didn't lose a single regular season game last year. The only game they lost was in the Fiesta Bowl at Oregon. They were undefeated going into the night. They went down to Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State started this game 0-6. They were dead ass last in the entire country in yards per game on offense and in points per game. And Kennesaw State won 27-24.
Check out the big brains on Brad over here, man. Coming up with the hot ghost pepper take of the week, and you're already almost there on Wednesday night. Come on, like
we had a commenter who said all Owls will win this week, so now I need to look up Florida Atlantic and Rice's schedules to see if that's going to happen. But this is just amazing. Like this season is wild. Everything we thought would happen just out the window. Now, Liberty did everybody a favor, I guess, in terms of the discourse, because we said, "Oh, Liberty's going to run through Conference USA. They're going to be 12-0. It would have been 11-0 at the end of the regular season because Appalachian State had to cancel because of Hurricane Helene. Would have been 12-0 after the Conference USA championship game had they gone through undefeated. That will not happen now. They have a loss. That is no longer an issue because I do think there was a possibility of an undefeated Liberty being compared to a one-loss Mountain West champ or a one-loss American champ or a two-loss Mountain West or American champ. And those teams would have played much tougher schedules than Liberty. So this eliminates that conversation.
It eliminates a distraction from teams that are actually good enough, right? Like Liberty was undefeated, but they struggled every week of the year.
Yeah, they'd gone to overtime with FIU. Like they were not having a great year.
Last year, or was last year the year they went undefeated? I think it was. That would be a completely different game, especially because like they were like blowing people out. But like, you know, it's so bizarre to see these scores. But like, I think that this was like a 26-point spread in this game, and for them to lose, you know, on Wednesday night is just another reminder about how you cannot snooze on this sport, even on the week nights.
Yeah. So Liberty's done. They're out of the playoff picture. A lot of other teams still in it. A lot of other teams still in it, including the Missouri Tigers. The SEC availability reports, they came out on Wednesday night, and Brady Cook, the Missouri quarterback, listed as doubtful for the Alabama game. The line moved 3.5 points on this news. Went from 13 to 16.5. Alabama is the favorite in this game. We don't know if it's no Brady Cook, but we do know he left the Auburn game, got an MRI, came back, put his uniform back on, and led Missouri to a win. But now it sounds like it may be the Drew Pine show against the Crimson Tide.
Well, I mean, also, too, just the way that Mizzou won last week, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence if they don't have him. I do think it's great, though, in college football that whenever some quarterback gets injured, the backup quarterback is just a recognizable name of somebody who started somewhere else that we know, like Drew Pines. I feel like Drew
Pine has started at Notre Dame and Arizona State.
Yeah, and it's just like not some random freshman that if you don't follow recruiting, you don't know who it is. Like it's just like Drew Pines playing. Well, we've seen him start.
It's like when Case Keenum shows up in the NFL as a starter.
Yeah,
it's a Case Keenum game.
Pat Henne is the backup for every NFL team at the same time.
Yes.
But like it is. A really fascinating situation because, Andy, you know how important this Alabama game is in terms of just, trying to get back on track or whatever. And like Mizzou, even though they've had a really terrible loss this year, still like technically from a record standpoint isn't out of the picture completely. So
they have one fewer loss than Alabama. So I'd say they're very much in the picture.
Being 6-1 and 1-1. Like, I don't know if, what will be interesting to me is like in the past, getting blown out was like a scarlet letter to the committee. Like it didn't matter if you had a blowout on your resume. I don't know who's the worst blowout that made it in the 14 field. I know there have been a few, but not that many. So
I was gonna say, I don't remember the worst blowout. I do remember Nick Saban being on SportsCenter that one year. It was 2017. Remember, Ohio State had lost at Iowa and just gotten drilled at Iowa. And Nick Saban's on SportsCenter, I believe it was Scott Van Pelt, saying, if we lost a game like that, you wouldn't even be talking to me right now. And it was like the ultimate political talking point right there.
Yeah, well, and like, I'm very curious, like I'm not going to get way ahead of myself here because I don't believe that this will happen, but if there were a world that Mizzou ended 10-2 and suffered another loss where they lost on a last second field goal, if we would get to the end of the season and have anti-Mizzou discourse in any debate of being the 11-10 or 9.
Ooh,
because
here's
they
a
lost
really
by 100.
good Dear Andy question that we're going to have later in the show that will help address it. Like, that situation right there would feed right into this question. So let's put a pin in that one, because I do think we can come back to that and talk about that in relation to the playoff, in relation to teams in other leagues and what they're doing right now. So let's talk about Alabama, though, because this is a huge game for Alabama. Obviously, they're a 16.5-point favorite. I've picked Missouri to cover. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer, Jalen Hurts, all the people at Alabama don't care if they cover as long as they win. If they win by 1, it's fine. They got to win. And I think the folks in Alabama, the Alabama fans they're really trying to adjust to this new world. And I wanted to play a little bit of audio for everybody, because I think everybody has seen the pulled quote from this statement, but hasn't heard the whole statement. And I think they're two different things, but either way, it's a really interesting discussion of Alabama. So A.J. McCarron, the former Alabama quarterback, who obviously led them to 2 national titles in 2011 and 2012, was a guest on the McCready and Siskey show. When Neil McCready covers Ole Miss, Tyler Siskey is a former coach who worked at a lot of different programs, including Alabama. And Neil asks AJ if this is something Alabama fans, the idea of just routinely losing games, is something Alabama fans have to get used to. Here's what AJ said.
You were at Alabama during an era when Alabama just kicked everyone's ass and dominated and was the preeminent number one best, no matter what, the best program in the country. Lost a game here and there, but Alabama was the best program in the country. Alabama is not the best team in the country this year. That's become obvious. Is this just a season where there's going to be some L's? Is a blip on the road? Or is this, hey, welcome to a new reality? Or is there some truth in between the two?
Well, I think for sure the standard that everybody was used to for so long after, Alabama fans went through a bunch of hell leading up to those glorious years. I think it's definitely a different era. I don't think you'll see the same standard from discipline, just things that the team seems to do. And it's a new day and age. Everybody's worried about fucking TikTok and having a reel and, being on highlights for their personal self and personal gain and how much money they can get from NIL. And I mean, we just didn't have that shit back then. So it was a team sport. You came together as a team because you had one common goal, because you knew that's how you were going to make your money, was by winning. Winning attracts people to that program. It attracts scouts. It attracts GMs, ownership, to allow yourself, to have that opportunity to go make yourself a lot of money and change your family tree for a long period of time. And, you can just tell it's not the same. It's, so, I would think Bama fans should get used to that, in a way of, hey, it's not going to be what you knew, from 2008, up till last year, where there was just a certain standard. And that's not a knock on the coaching staff or, a knock on anybody. It's just a different era, and it's something I think they're going to have to, buckle up if they're not ready for it. So
what everybody saw was AJ McCarron saying everybody's worried about effing TikTok, and the takeaway was he was talking about everybody at Alabama is worried about effing TikTok. What he means is everybody in the whole country is worried about TikTok, including the players at Alabama, and it creates a different environment, not what you're used to seeing at Alabama under Nick Saban. I don't know about you, Ari. This further feeds into what I wrote about in Dear Annie last week, where I think Nick Saban saw this coming and knew he could not dominate the way he used to, and that is a big reason why he's not coaching right now.
Yeah, but I think that those are two different things, Andy. Like when I listen to this, and I don't know if you think I'm nuts, but I feel like anybody who says they're just concerned about TikTok and social media is just like has an old way of thinking. Like, was the TikTok era only didn't exist just because of Saban's 2008 to 2020? Like that, like this isn't a new thing. I think that the NIL
now NIL, like the ability to monetize it, the ability to create a platform, use that platform to create a brand for yourself and monetize it, only came in 2021 for the college players.
But do we think that Alabama would have lost to Vanderbilt, or that they would have suffered as much as they did against Tennessee had Saban been the coach this year? Like, are we going to make a straight line to TikTok here, or are we going to make a straight line to the fact too that Alabama is going through a pretty rough period where their legendary head coach left and they lost some really good players along the way? Now they added some good players, but like Alabama's issues aren't just, young people and their TikTok. Like that's not what I see.
Because everybody has the same age people.
Yeah, everybody's going through it. Yeah. And by the way, and what you're saying about Saban, I 100%. I think the reason why he retired, and I wrote this the day that he left the game, that he's a smart man who, and you're the one who always used to say, he told you in his office like 10 years ago that like when he realized he couldn't adapt or he couldn't keep up anymore, that would be the day he walked out the door, and he was real about that.
Yeah, he'd do it before anybody else saw it coming, before anybody else realized it, and
like he's a genius because he doesn't have to like have that 3 or 4 year average streak on the end of his resume. Like he went to the playoff and then left. Like he didn't have to go through like finding out. He knew. Like I buy all that. What I don't buy is that people, like teams, are going to have issues winning as a result of the same thing that everybody's dealing with. Like kids,
somebody's going to win. Like that's the thing. Somebody always wins. So somebody's going to figure out how to win in this era. It's just a matter of who that person is.
Yeah. So like I get what he's saying, and I understand too, like back in 2011, when you went to Alabama, it was probably purer, right? You went there because you wanted to compete. You wanted to be a part of the best program in America. You wanted to win a national championship, and you wanted to come together with your teammates for a common goal. Like I love that, like 2011 in that regard is nostalgic. And I also am very keenly aware of the benefits of going to Alabama now as it pertains to your potential income. Like I get that the time has changed, but I just don't know that I draw a straight line between like teams can no longer be excellent for a prolonged period of time because the only thing that their players care about is dancing in front of a camera or painting their nails or doing whatever it is that kids do these days. Like
Ryan Williams, the pictures floating around of Ryan Williams with the painted nails. You had Ryan Williams, and I forget who the other receiver was, pretending to shoot jump shots when Jalen Milroe was failing to make the line to gain on a quarterback sneak at Tennessee. So you've got all that. Here's the thing. Like Ryan Williams is actually the worst example of this, because Ryan Williams came in as a 17-year-old and is the best player on the damn team. Like,
it's like, so why are people criticizing
not stopping him from
player on the team for painting his nails because his sister does it? Like, who cares? Like, I feel like sometimes we're always like trying to like find the reason for why something is happening while ignoring the obvious reason for why it's happening.
It's because Nick Saban's not there.
It's not
Nick Saban's not there because he saw this coming, but it's because Nick Saban's not there.
But last year, when Kalen DeBoer led his team to a national championship, TikTok existed, national championship game. TikTok existed. Players were able to get compensated for their money. Like all the same issues of like personalities and stuff. You know, he also had Michael Penix Jr. and 2 NFL receivers on his team and maybe 3. So like, 4, I meant to say.
Well, yeah, Jeremy Bernard would be the 4th.
Jeremy Bernard's going to be in the NFL soon. So, and he's on his team now. Like, I just, like, I don't know if I don't find myself. Sometimes things are really, really deep, and sometimes you have to spend 35 minutes discussing them in order to get to the bottom of like whatever is causing the thing that you're discussing. But like in this regard, like Alabama can never be good again because TikTok or because it's like, I don't buy that at all. So like, and that's just me. That's just me.
No, it's not just you. You're right about this. And that's what I was thinking about today, because I was going over this quote in my mind, and I'm like, yeah, this is now AJ McCarron's younger than me, but he sounds older than me.
I know.
This is what every preceding generation said, and it's not. I'm painting with a broad brush, because there are people in every generation who don't say the world is going to hell in a handbasket because the younger generation is taking over. There are people in every generation who realize that every generation is just different. And like, I always think it's funny that everybody thinks the younger generation is so soft. There are people who are 17, 18 years old right now who are incredibly hard workers, who are really diligent. Like, there's people like that in every generation, and there's lazy asses in every generation. That's not unique to the generations. Now, are we as hardy as the greatest generation? No, we're not. We're soft compared to them.
The boomers were able to buy a house without being hardworking, right? That's the difference. No, I'm kidding.
Because the greatest generation set them up. So,
I like the online trend of boomers are evil. Like, I just think it's funny. The thing that I will notice about myself, Andy, is that like I start to say things now that old people used to say that would irritate me. So like I know that's like those
all this new music sucks.
Yeah,
that was
right. Exactly.
That's the first time I realized I was old, when I said that.
I said like, they don't make music that I like anymore. And like the music that we grew up listening to feels like the oldies now. Like I say stuff like that. I don't like the movies they make. You know that. Like it's but like I also know that like I'm saying things because I'm old. Like I'm like aware of that.
Somebody's gonna make, some young person is gonna make a great movie that you love.
I hope so.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing about this. Some coach is gonna figure out how to win a lot with these players this age. But then, in the NIL era.
I think about my
and his name's probably Dan Lanning. Yeah. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. And like also too, like there was once a trend, or still kind of as a trend of hiring young, moderately attractive offensive minds to coach college and NFL teams. Like that's like not like, you don't have to be a 60-year-old man to be good at this. You can be, but it just is funny because like my father, grew up, and when I grew up, I'd listen to like Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath and all the stuff that he like grew up listening to that mortified his father. And then he listened to the rap music that I like, and he's mortified by it. And God knows what my daughter is going to be listening to when she's, 15. But like that's just the way
my son knows every Jeezy song because that's what we listen to when we're working out. Like
you don't need to lecture Alabama fans though about how it's never going to be the same again because kids are different. Like okay. Or just hire the best coach that you can, and maybe that's still Kalen DeBoer. Not saying it's not. No, it's a very tough transition year that would have been tough any generation. Like if Nick Saban left in 2009, it would have been different.
Let's go back to what Doug Reese was talking about yesterday, because I think that's part of it too. Like the sport's been flattened. Alabama can't dominate as much as it did before because it can't stockpile talent the way it did before either. Like Eli Holstein would be stuck at Alabama right now. He is on an undefeated team at Pitt starting right
and now. Very good. Like objectively, like playing very well this year. Like,
yes.
And that's
because the rule changed. It's not because kids have TikTok now.
And I actually have a theory. I was thinking about that because I don't know if you're a psychopath like me, but I listen back to our shows when I'm driving sometimes.
You got to air check. That's just good practice.
I'm not doing it because I'm going to make sure it sounds okay. Like
I did it to hear my McConaughey impression.
I do it all the time because I want to make sure that the show I thought was good. but like I like re-listen to it to be like, oh man, I should have made that point, or like, oh, I forgot it to say that or whatever, or like it makes me rethink and it helps me write columns for our site. And like I actually wonder, and I have this theory, and maybe we could talk about this another time, or maybe we could talk about it now. But the Eli Holstein comment that he made, and I heard him say it on Kings of the North too, so like this wasn't the first time I heard him say it.
Yeah,
is like, is the entire sport flattening in terms of depth? Yes, right. We think that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest difference in college football today that did not exist in 2015, pre-TikTok and NIL, is that more teams have good quarterbacks. Like if you go look at the Big Ten in general and a lot of the teams in the North, like I think 15 of the 18 teams in the Big Ten are starting a transfer. Like, Nico didn't play his best game at Tennessee on Saturday, and this is the NIL, or this isn't a transfer, but like everybody has a really good quarterback. And like, because those players like Eli Holstein, if they aren't going to play at a place, will find a new place, and then they often excel at the new place.
There's a reason why everybody has a good quarterback, Ari. 25 years ago, every high school coach ran the wing T, and they just hand it off. And now every high school runs a shotgun, like every big high school, Texas, Florida, Georgia, they all run shotgun spreads, and they play 7-on-7. So these quarterbacks have so many reps, like they're all better.
But that's true. Also, like if you come up and you're a recruit, like you have a personal quarterback coach, you go to the Elite 11, like there's more coaching and passing and understanding the game at an earlier age now than there's ever been before. Very expensive, but it's done a lot. But like, in 2007 or 2014, like River can help me out here, but like, did Tennessee have a great quarterback every year? Like, I think that like
this Eric Ainge slander will not stand. Actually, was Eric Ainge there? I think Eric Ainge last year was 06, but
yeah, I just think that like the Eli Holstein example is a very like important one, because like usually when you play Indiana, they don't have two good quarterbacks on their team. Like those guys would be sitting on a bench somewhere behind somebody not playing at all. So the fact that like everybody who's capable of playing quarterback at a high level, like finds a starting position somewhere, it might not be the sexiest place in the world, but they're on the field, makes it hard to close out games every week, because you know what? Curtis Rourke might make a throw that the starter at Indiana 5 years ago wouldn't have been able to make.
And Eli Holstein was at Alabama. Nick Saban thought Jalen Milroe was better and played him, and thought Ty Simpson was better because Ty Simpson was the backup. They were recruiting Julian Sayin to come in. So, like, Eli Holstein looked at that and was like, I don't know if this is going to be it for me. I need to go find somewhere I can play right now. And he did.
And in college football, if you don't have a good quarterback, how crippling that is. I mean, we've talked about Auburn on every episode since the beginning of the year.
Pittsburgh knows, because they got it wrong 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And now they got it right.
And even though players are more advanced coming out of high school and are better at it, like you said, it's still really hard to find a good one. But now it's much easier for places that don't usually sign top 100 players or proven entities at that position to find one, which is why. And if you're Tennessee, who, by the way, had Hendon Hooker, not too long ago, and some pretty good quarterbacks in their past, like are almost guaranteed to always find somebody out of high school that could play that way. So like, is it all the entire roster is just less deep? Sure. But I think that the quarterback position, with the lack of depth and that Texas's situation being so rare, that used to be pretty regular. Like there were times at places that
or Georgia had Stetson Bennett with Carson Beck backing him up, or LSU had Jaden Daniels with Garrett Nussmeier. We talk about those because they're the anomaly now. That used to be
Carson Beck could be the starting quarterback at like freaking Purdue right now, for all we know.
He could he could have been Brock Vandegrift. He could have left like Brock Vandegrift did.
Yeah.
So
yep.
That's I like AJ had a little, which I'm glad that I'm not that quite there yet. And there are some people younger than me that have hit old man yelling at cloud before I did. It makes me feel kind of young.
I don't know if AJ has kids your age, but like maybe it's just because you're around kids and understand.
I think his kids are younger, so
yeah. Like I hope that like when my daughter gets to a certain age, that like that'll keep me young. But I do think that being engaged in social media and the internet kind of helps you stay more engaged with things that the younger generation is into now. Like, I think that people like me are probably going to age like from a like pop culture standpoint a little bit slower than like my father did, for instance.
Yeah, I don't know. Other than Taylor Swift, I have no idea who my daughter thinks is famous.
No,
like,
Andy, you know a lot of stuff. Like, you're like, oh, it is true. Like, I'll watch the Grammys and I'll be like, I've never heard of any of these people. So like, maybe I'm wrong, but like, you know about like the NCAA football game. Like, you know about the TikTok trend.
I know who Sabrina Carpenter. I know like 6 Sabrina Carpenter songs. So I
don't even know if my father knows what TikTok is.
Snapface.
I love you, Dad. I'm not talking badly about you. I'm just saying, like, you know, how engaged you are online.
Right. It's
definitely
it's a very different. And maybe AJ McCarron's not particularly engaged online because, look, he made good money playing professional football. He doesn't have to be on Twitter as much as we do.
He does not have to be on Twitter. Yeah. And also being a part of this job or this career path makes you have to be engaged with everything that's going on at all times. Like AJ, during his entire professional career before going into media, was like, okay, I'm not at practice right now. I can turn my phone off or I'm watching film. Like, that's like what was consuming.
What a glorious life that might be. I just for a week, I could live with that.
I mean, Andy,
I don't know how long I'd like it, but I could live with it for a week.
I want to get back into it, but like, I used to have to call teenagers like 5 times a week, in my life, and talk to them about like what's going on. So, you know, I'm cool with the youngins, the teens.
Hello, fellow young people.
Hello, young
right. Well,
yeah, right.
Well, fellow young people, what you should be doing is listening to all the hot new songs on the Spotify box through your JLab headphones. JLab is gearing up for college football with some of the top talent in the game, from Travis Hunter to Ohio State's Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins. These football stars embody JLab's core values of innovation, performance, and excellence. Just as JLab pushes the boundaries of audio tech, these athletes redefine their sport with skill and dedication. Whether you're traveling to watch your favorite team or streaming the game on your mobile device, JLab has you covered. Find the blue box at retailers nearest you or visit JLab.com. You get the JLab J-Buds Lux ANC over-the-ear headphones. You can get the Epic Air Sport noise canceling over the ear, beautiful workout headphones. JLab.com. Find that blue box. All right, Ari. We do need to follow up on something that we talked about a lot earlier in the season. And it was one of those that people got mad at me for continuing to bring it up. And I was like, stop it. You guys can't take a joke.
Oh, God,
And it's funny. The guy, the Florida State fan who said if they lose to Boston College, he'll eat dog poop out of a red Solo cup. That person did not pay off that bet, and it frankly cursed his team. People got mad because I kept bringing it up. They said it wasn't funny anymore. And I disagreed with them until today, when a Florida State student, at least according to this video, ate dog poop out of red Solo cup to lift the curse.
Like, you see the Syracuse frat videos and you go like, I could do that.
You have a spoon?
Yeah, of course I have a spoon. Oh, there's gonna be poop on my hand.
Like, oh, there's a lot of snacks.
Okay, it's clear now. I'm gonna dive in here. Wait, is this good? All right, bro. Florida State's cursed. We suck at football. But I love college. I love Florida State. And thank me when we beat Miami. Yeah, not even that bad. 3, 2, 1, null. Like, what's up, bro? Just do it.
All right. There were lots of cuts in there, so I cannot guarantee that he actually did that. I kind of hope he didn't. But if he actually did that, Florida State's beating Miami.
Andy, the physical reaction that I get just watching it, like, I have to like stop myself from gagging.
I had Producer River cut out the part where they show the dog actually pooping because I felt like that was too much.
He didn't gag. Like, I don't think he did it. Hopefully he didn't. Like,
I think that might have been like chocolate frozen yogurt.
Yes. Because like, you don't like, that would make you like vomit. Like, that's not like, oh, that's not even that bad. Like, that would be terrible. But the thing is that I appreciate the effort because, something has to be done there. Now, the question that I had, and hopefully this isn't, because like I'm not in on the sorcery realm of the internet, or the Syracuse frat trend that they were talking about at the beginning of the video. No,
I don't even want to know what that means. Like,
yeah,
sorry, call me AJ McCarron on that one. I don't even want to know. Don't tell me.
Know what's going on at the Syracuse frat circles, but it is coming up on Halloween. October 31st is about a week away. Can somebody else lift the spell, or did it have to be 3, 2, 1? No, I guess we're gonna find out Saturday.
Yeah. Does somebody take that on for him? Does this guy, our guy? I'm blanking on his name right now, and I'm not sure his parents want his name out there anyway.
Yeah.
But good Lord, his name is Chase. Of course, his name is Chase. But yeah, I mean, if this works though, Chase is a legend. So, by the way, there is a guy who kind of did some stuff like this when he went to Florida State, and his name is Bert Kreischer. He was in college at Florida State about the same time I was in college at Florida. He was a legend at Florida State. And so I'm sure a lot of people know who Bert Kreischer is now. He's a stand-up comedian. Very funny. Has this entire, a routine that became a movie called The Machine. But that's based on something that happened when he was a Florida State student.
Okay. I'm not familiar with his movies, but I have seen a few of his stand-up specials. He doesn't wear a shirt.
Yeah, he should, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
That's the joke. Oh, wow. Yeah, so this Chase is going to be if Florida State beats Miami this weekend, and I got to say, Chase, you went through a lot of effort for the line to only move down 1 point. So somebody watched this video and was like, I'm going to put a couple shekels on Florida State.
Yeah.
Not many people.
I love that you're saying the word shekels now. I love that. I love that.
You're rubbing off on
no,
me.
you know what? I cannot. I got to tell you, I've had like false hope for a dead cat bounce for Florida State for the past
It ain't coming.
months. And it just isn't coming. You would think that Florida State would put together a great game.
We don't even need to show DJ Producer River. I look, we're going to see Brock Glenn, and there's been a lot more Luke Kromenhout conversation coming out of Tallahassee the last few days. So we may see Luke Kromenhout, the freshman from Savannah, Georgia.
But like Miami too does have a defense that tends to give up some points. So you could maybe talk yourself into this being a rivalry game. I actually think that Miami's going to win like 63-0.
I think Miami's going
to
Florida State won 45-3 when they were down there 2 years ago because they were trying to make a point. Yes. Miami's going to try. Remember the Ed Reed speech from 2001 when Miami's up in Tallahassee? It's halftime. Miami's kicking the crap out of Florida State anyway, and Ed Reed's like, "I'm hurt, dog," and he talks about Florida State just beating the living crap out of Miami earlier in his career. That's what they're going to get. They might even bring in Ed Reed to give that speech.
Yeah. And by the way, hey, just want to do a quick victory lap here. If you were one of the guys or girls who yelled at me at the beginning of the year for putting Miami in their top 10, welcome to the shows, guys. Welcome to the show, because here we are. And it's a team that I think is probably going to go undefeated this year. So that's 2 in a row. Now, I don't know who I'm going to pick next year, but Texas last year. Texas before the season, I took a bunch of crap for last year. Playoff, Miami, obviously the route to getting there.
Yeah, you were the only one saying Miami was going to be good. How brave.
No, I'm just saying, putting them in the top 10, I overranked them at the beginning of the year and people were upset about it. So I just wanted you to know that I feel pretty good about being, on the ground floor of this thing. That's all.
Well, listen, Ari, you do not have to eat poop.
I wouldn't.
To make your team better. I mean, I am curious, how far would you go if it meant your team was going to win? If it would guarantee victory for your team that weekend, how far would you go?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Being in this profession, when is the last time you rooted for a team and felt the way that people listen to the show feel about the team?
When I watch my kids' team play, when I watch my kids' football team play, that's the only. But that's the only thing because the profession is beating it out of me in terms of watching professional and college sports.
because like I love watching sports. I love sports. I don't know that like there's been a result in a very long time. If like since I was 13.
Well, how about if
that
it's
like
a team
hurt
you?
me.
How about if it's a team you bet live?
Oh, that happens
Shortly
all the time.
after halftime,
Happening right now, man.
plus 7.5. Like,
oh yeah, no, that's 4 times a weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
So
trust
how
me.
far would you go?
Well, that's financially motivated. I would go pretty far depending on the side of the bet. I don't know that I would ever. The only time I would ever put dog poop in my mouth, Andy, is if it were to save my family. Like I don't know that there's anything else that would
If this was super dried out, I might be willing to do it for money. But that's probably it.
How much money would it take for you to take a bite out of a piece of white, dried out dog poop?
It'd have to be a good amount of money.
Like enough to buy a Ford Raptor, or enough to like never have to work
it's
again?
a 5-figure number, possibly a 6-figure number. So
I guess I would take a bite for like 50 grand.
Yeah,
I took a bite out of that chip for the show. I've gone pretty far for
what's
the show.
The worst thing that can happen? You puke. But
yeah,
the good news is all of you out there, none of you have to do this to be rewarded as a fan. We have a new sponsor called Wunderfan. It's a first of its kind college football stadium rewards app where fans earn real rewards just for cheering for their favorite team. All you do is head to the App Store, download the app, check in once you're at the game or your tailgate, and you let your earnings grow. It's that easy. During each game you attend, you'll earn in the background once you press start. So once you have enough earnings, you can redeem gift cards for your favorite brands like Fanatics, Dick's, Lululemon, StubHub, Home Depot, and many more. There's even ticket giveaways and fun contests where you can use your points to enter. So new rewards are added weekly. Right now, users will get 50 free Wonder. That's the name for these points. That's the name for this currency within the app, Wonder, just for signing up. And that alone would score you a $10 Fanatics code, a $10 off Fanatics code, and a chance to win tickets to the national championship game. So just head to the App Store and search Wunderfan. That's WUNDERFAN. WUNDERFAN. And start being paid for your fan loyalty. Wunderfan, where it pays to be a fan. Ari, there's going to be a lot of people with Wunderfan at Kyle Field because it holds over 100,000, and they're going to be packed in like sardines on Saturday for LSU Texas A&M. The biggest game of the weekend. I am so excited for this game. It's one of those, it's not an elimination game. We got to come up with a term for these pre-elimination games.
Yeah. I think that I actually thought that we have to workshop this because we should not call games elimination games anymore.
Unless they
aren't actually legitimately you're out.
Like when LSU beat Ole Miss in a game, because LSU has played in one of these already, where it's kind of like we'll call it a pre-elimination game. So
yeah,
when LSU beat Ole Miss, we were like, Ole Miss isn't running the table. They're going to be out. But they're not out yet. Like, they can conceivably run the table, keep winning, and they could be in the playoff. But they're probably not going to. The loser of this one probably isn't going to run the table, but could. So it is a pre-elimination game, and it is a fun one. And we've already seen LSU survive one of these, and they did it in really dramatic fashion, beating Ole Miss in overtime at home. They then went on the road and beat Arkansas. Now they're on the road again at Texas A&M. These two teams each have a loss, but they're both non-conference losses. So the bigger piece of all this is the winner is in decent position to make the SEC championship game. And so this is going to be a fun one, Ari. Let us look at this through the lens of our friends at Prize Picks. So if you're not playing Prize Picks, it is America's most fun daily fantasy game. Download the app, use the code STAPLES, play $5, and get $50 instantly to play for a new user. Now, the way it works is you'll have a player attached to a statistical category. You'll say, I think this person's going to do more than this or less than this. So here's an example. CJ Daniels, receiver from LSU. He missed the Ole Miss game. He came back for the Arkansas game. So his number for this game is 55.5 receiving yards. Now, in the Arkansas game, I believe he had 87 receiving yards. So he had more. And that was coming off an injury, coming off being out for a game. Now he's back very much in the flow of the offense. We're still waiting to hear about Chris Hilton. He's listed as questionable still for this game. He was listed as questionable last week and did not play as well. But CJ Daniels is probably going to be, I would think, a big target for Garrett Nussmeier in this game. And Garrett Nussmeier is, I don't know about you, Ari. I think Garrett Nussmeier might be the best quarterback in the SEC.
I don't know about you, Andy, but I think he might be the most underrated player in college football.
Ooh, one-upsmanship there.
It was. Yeah.
Now, his number on Prize Picks is 284.5. And if we look at Garrett Nussmeier this year, the Arkansas game is the only one of the last 5 where he hasn't gone more than that number. And he's had some really big numbers. He had 409 against South Alabama, 337 against Ole Miss, 352 against UCLA, 285 against South Carolina. So that was just a tick above. But this is a guy, and I think this is interesting, Ari, because Texas A&M has one of the best pass rushes in America. But he has seen 2 really good pass rushing teams in South Carolina and Ole Miss. He has seen people in his face. And it seems like LSU will just let him throw through it, because in that Ole Miss game, they just kept chucking till they came back and won.
I mean, obviously, when it comes to that number, I know that LSU is going to put him in a position to reach it from an attempt standpoint. You have to worry about, the crowd and the defensive line and all those things, because that can, have a pretty big impact on a quarterback's ability to perform. But this is a pretty big opportunity for Garrett Nussmeier in general and LSU. If they go in there and win this game, he goes more than 284.5. I think we start talking about him in the way that we should have been talking about him a month ago. It's getting to the point now where, this looks like maybe one of the most defined NFL prospects at the position in the entire sport this year. So, LSU has made it into a lot of people's top 10s this week, not in mine yet. But if they win this game, I think this could be the blast off position to where we start.
They're in my bracketology in the field if they win this game, and A&M probably is too. But I have them as they're the next 2 out. We have the next
mine
4.
Too.
They're the first 2 of the next 4 out. Yeah.
Who would have thought?
So
it would be me and you like that. Look at us, not me. Not me.
How about that? Now, another guy we need to talk about, Le'Veon Moss for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Connor Wegman coming back changed the math for A&M. It's a little hard to predict what Connor Wegman's going to do, because we've only seen him start, the last 2 games coming off the injury. He obviously was awesome against Missouri, and it felt like it really did kind of open up the offense. But this defense will get after you. LSU still not awesome on the back end, but they are really good at rushing the quarterback and making his life miserable. But what A&M can do to take pressure off of Connor Wegman, I think it's probably a little easier for A&M to run the ball on LSU than it will be for LSU to run the ball on A&M. So Le'Veon Moss is an interesting person in this whole thing. His rushing number is 84.5. He's hit that 4 of the last 5 games. He didn't hit it in the Mississippi State game. His rush plus receiving yards number is 101.5, and he's hit that in 4 of his last 5 games as well. So I would expect heavy doses of Le'Veon Moss in this game.
Yeah, the difficult proposition that you have here is that Texas A&M has 2 running backs they like a lot. Amari Daniels carries the ball almost as much. So you have to hope that he pops off a big run. So if you like this number, you might, look at some of the other squares for total yardage or longest run if it's offered. But they have a really, really good running back tandem, both of whom looked great in that blowout win over Mizzou. And Connor Wegman is going to be impacted by this as well. So what kind of game do you anticipate Texas A&M having in this? Do you feel like they're going to, be able to run the ball pretty well on LSU to set up the pass? Or do you think it's going to have to get to a point where Wegman takes over and matches what Nussmeier is doing through the air in order for A&M to get this one at home?
Yeah, it is going to be so much fun. This game, the atmosphere is going to be great. It's exactly what you want in your kind of, this is one of those games that the 12-team playoff has added some fire to. Although even in a 4-team playoff, this would be a very big game. This would be the elimination game in a 4-team playoff. Now it's a pre-elimination game. It's going to set up another elimination game and probably 2 more elimination games at some point down the road. So this
is a game between the team that you think this is to be the 3rd best team in the conference, right? Because Doug asked you, who's the 3rd best team in the SEC?
The 3rd best team in the conference that might actually be the best team in the conference. if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
These both have really good rosters.
Yeah, and the great thing about it, I mean, if A&M were to win this game, their remaining schedule is South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, and Texas. Like, we could be setting up here. And, like, honestly, I know we haven't made a decision on where we're going for rivalry weekend. If it's between one loss A&M and one loss Texas, like, I'll get fired.
We're going to be there.
That game. Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to not go to that. So
yeah, we're going to that game.
You can come stay at my house again, and we'll
if we
drive
have to
down
sit
together.
on the roof of the Kyle Field press box.
But it's just like one of those places where it's like, you know, we're trying to think which game would be the best to be at because of like who's going to get in and who's not going to get in. And I generally agree with that. I feel like this might be one of those games where you just have to be there, like to understand.
Well, the hatred level, the fact that it's the first one since 2011. And then if it had those stakes attached to it,
yep,
it's off.
I think it's gonna be the loudest. I've never been to Kyle Field, but I've heard about the legend of Kyle Field. Been there on the outside of it.
I've been there for some pretty big games, and it gets very loud.
Yeah,
very loud.
Pandemonium, and there's a Buc-ee's from on the highway down there. So you can stop and get your beef.
Yes, there are multiple Buc-ee's and maybe some deer sausage. Maybe some. I like the smoked turkey sandwich at Buc-ee's. It's pretty. Underrated.
By the way, a few months ago, had the crispy chicken sandwich there. It's pretty electric.
There you go.
The one thing that they used to have that they don't have that bothers me is that sliced sausage sandwich where they put the barbecue sauce with the sausage. They don't make that anymore. Bizarre.
Well, we could also stop at the Wendy's for some saucy nugs because we are, of course, presented by Wendy's, and we do love the saucy nugs. We also have another new sponsor. Our friends at Panini America, the makers of the finest sports cards in America. The Luminance Football Card Series features NIL autograph cards from players including Arch Manning, Quinn Ewers, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, and Luther Burden. And Ari, you've got a Caleb Downs autograph card over there.
Yeah. So I don't know if you people know this about me, but like
can we see the card, Ari?
Oh, yeah, of course. Got the card right here. Caleb Downs.
Ooh.
Autograph card.
Very nice.
Trying to get this to work on the camera here.
It's incredible. I see it. It's beautiful.
And you get the auto on there. I don't know if people know this about me, Andy, but like this is a thing for me. Like I am really into it. And you know, I part of me makes me feel like I am a kid again, you know, because we all did this when we were children. But now, like, the hobby has taken a whole new world of, you know, Instagram and eBay and all this stuff. And it's a really, really cool way to, like, invest in young players, too. Like, because cards values go up and down. And, you know, you have an ability to be like, hey, I watched this kid play at X college. I think he's going to be awesome. I'm going to buy him early and try to chase him through the products and then grab him, put him in a box somewhere. And then hopefully it increases in value. I love everything about it. So I've been ripping the Luminance product that they sent, and I have bought already on my own. I've got the stack of cards here, Andy. Like, I got to show you. I'm going to get up for a second.
All right. I will show you. This is the Luminance box. We're going to rip a pack of these on Saturday night. So we'll show you what you get in a pack of Luminance, because it is kind of cool to see like these names. Like that's one of the things I like about the NIL era is like you could get a card of these guys where you couldn't get cards of these guys before.
Yeah, and it's not just the NIL guys. The NIL guys are awesome because it's like the first time you get their autos.
And some of your favorite former college football players in the NFL.
I got this Bucky Irving card. He's having a really good rookie season here.
Yeah. Go Ducks,
like
baby.
Green on green ink on that parallel. But like I've got like, if you came into my office, like I've just got stacks of cards of like look at this monster here. This is a CJ Stroud rookie card, number to 249, that I'm going to go have graded out of Donruss Optic. You know, I've got some nukes here. It's not going quite as well for this 3-color select here for Bryce Young. Tank Bigsby's, you know, making
Tank Bigsby's getting it done in Jacksonville.
Yeah, like I've got some Quentin Johnston. Like these are all like short print numbered cards. And the thing that I love about the hobby now that wasn't necessarily as prevalent when I was a kid, you know, they sent us a box of select guys. This is a gold card that I pulled on Friday from the box that Panini sent, and this is a club level select Bijan Robinson, and it's numbered to 10. Like, there's only 10 of these on Earth. So like the fact that they're serial numbered on the back like really excites me, because like, specifically if you want this card and this parallel, this color, disco gold, there's only 10. And obviously you can imagine what the value of the cards are that are short printed like that. So like Rashee Rice, like I am like over here collecting, grading, buying, selling, doing all the things that I can. It's like all of the intersection of my favorite things. It's football, it's investing, it's all the stuff. So like, I love it. And I'm so happy they're our sponsor, because like, it is just generally some of the most fun that I have like in like my personal life. And I spend all my money on it. So thank you.
If you want to start collecting like Ari is, visit paniniamerica.net. That is paniniamerica.net. All right, Ari, we have a bunch of really good Dear Andy and Ari questions. There's some interesting playoff scenarios. Actually, I'm going to go to the one that I said when we were talking about the Alabama situation earlier, and the Missouri situation. And
Dear Andy and Ari starting at 48 minutes. Love this show. Love it.
You were talking about if, let's say, Missouri gets blown out this weekend, and they wind up as a 3-loss team. So this question is from Max. It says, love the show. Longtime listener, first time writer. You guys have been my go-to for workouts, which I don't know about using us to work out. I don't think I would like my voice should be pumping you up in the squat rack, but that's neither here nor there.
And goes, can't end up like that guy.
He says nothing riles me up like listening to Ari's asinine opinions on the 12-team playoff, which he's glad he's come around on, even if it's at the expense of my Seminoles and Mexican food. But Max was listening yesterday with Doug Lay Maurice. Your attempt to claim, this is my attempt, to claim BYU as a Southern power got me thinking about a scenario or two that nobody but myself seems to be talking about. It's the general consensus that the Big 12 will only receive one playoff bid, since nobody is allegedly good enough to run the table in that conference. But from where I'm sitting, it seems that 3 teams have separated themselves from the pack. The scenario of what happens if the Big 12 championship game features undefeated BYU and undefeated Iowa State seems pretty cut and dry. The winner gets the bye, likely underseeded at the 4 seed, expected to get their doors blown off by an inferior SEC runner-up, while the lower goes on the road for a playoff game when they should be hosting. The scenario I'm curious about, and the sicko in me is rooting for, is this. What if BYU runs the table, but instead of undefeated Iowa State, they meet a 1-loss Kansas State that has just beaten Iowa State in Farmageddon? And they get their revenge. Because remember, K-State has a loss to BYU. So K-State gets the revenge against BYU in the Big 12 title game. So you have 12-1 Kansas State, 12-1 BYU, 11-1 Iowa State in that situation. Is the committee really going to look at 3 1-loss Big 12 teams with quality non-conference wins whose only losses are to each other and try to convince us that a couple inconsistent 3-loss teams from the SEC are better teams? Let me do a short answer to Max's question. No. They're not putting a 3-loss SEC team in over those teams. Might they put a 2-loss SEC or Big Ten team in over them? Yes.
Which brings us back to, will a blowout stop you from being added in? And like, I think that's interesting, because like we do talk about the number one disconnect that fans still have after 7 years of the 14 field, which is, they think the committee cares as much about who you lose to as they do who you beat. And that's never been the case. They care
about who you beat a lot more.
So, but the one thing that the committee does care about traditionally is if you were blown out. Like if you are blown out, that is a referendum on your resume that
it's a huge red flag. Yeah.
Yes. So if you were blown out and you're a 2-loss SEC team, like Mizzou, for instance, let's say Mizzou loses to Alabama and then runs the table because their schedule is soft, right? And they don't play in the SEC championship, and it's just a rematch of Georgia and Texas. What do you do in the scenario where you have 10 and 2?
I don't think Mizzou gets in over any of those 3 in that scenario.
I think that the fact that they were blown out the way that they were by Texas A&M makes it really difficult. Now, if they would have lost to A&M by 3 or 2 at the last second, on the road, and then lost to Alabama, I think that you would be able to forgive that schedule. But like, there would be nothing else on the schedule to prop them up in order to put them in. So I think you have to look at who they beat.
I think if you had
and,
a
like,
two-loss team, if you had a two-loss team that beat somebody who's in the field, it beat one or two teams that are in the field, then that two-loss team is going to have a better chance. Because now, the thing is, though, those Big 12 teams, they will have wins over teams that should be in the field. At least two of them will. So, because one might get left out, but at least two of them are getting in that scenario.
Yeah.
The question is does a third?
Yeah, well, I that's what I was actually kind of curious to hear you answer. Like, do you think that there is a world where they have three in?
Yes, it's exactly what you said. If you've got two-loss SEC or Big Ten teams that are two-loss teams because they played a soft schedule and they lost to the best teams they played, especially if they got blown out.
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah,
I love see this possible
scenarios. Like, this was the number one thing I was afraid of, like, losing. So, in this world, but the doomsday scenarios in the end of October are like my favorite college football pastime, and I do think that if BYU and Iowa State, they don't play, right? They don't both ascend to the Big 12 championship game as undefeateds, and you have a very close competitive football game. I don't know that I can see a scenario in my head where both don't go. But the third team, super fascinating. That's
the one that needs to work. In this scenario, the 11-1 Iowa State that lost Farmageddon. That's the tricky one. So I can't wait. I am really excited to see how all this plays out. And I don't everybody keeps asking us to predict what the committee will do. We don't know what the committee's going to do.
No. And will it operate in the same exact way that it did with the 14 field, or does the calculus change? Does the way that you view?
I think the way they view certain things does change. Like where they put certain teams. Like, would Florida State have been number 5 last year, or would they have been number 4? Because it doesn't make a difference if you're 5 or 4 whether you get into the playoff.
If they both get in, yeah, like last year. But I wonder if they'll do the same thing with 12 and 13, or 11 and 13, depending on
probably. But that team has less of a claim than the undefeated conference champ that is left out for a one-loss conference champ.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the one thing that I wish that I would have said when Big Cat was on that I just didn't say, and I was listening back to it, is the 12-team expansion thing is difficult for me because I know that's not over. Like, that's the other thing. This is the beginning.
Well, it's going to 14 in 2 years.
Yeah, and who knows what it'll be in 10. My thought, though, is that I have zero remorse for you at all. And this is and I don't know if you're going to be like this too, but if you are 13, I don't give a shit. There's I actually had a great deal of remorse for Florida State last year.
And should have, inside, what were they supposed to do?
Yeah. So but if you're 13, go cry me a river. You're not. If you can't get into the 12. I don't know if I've said. I just wanted to say that. So I wish I would have said that to him. Yeah.
All right. This question's from Trenton, and I think it's a fascinating one. I covered this in the written, dear Andy. We don't have to go through every single one of these, but the names on this just pop. Looking back, who were the best and worst hires in the 2022 offseason? So that's end of the 2021 season, going into 2022.
Don't make me relive it again. Don't make me relive this again. Every episode, I got to go through this shit every time.
Well, hey, we don't have to talk that much about Lincoln Riley. We can just kind of place him in the hierarchy.
You can't ask this question and that not be the first thing that pops in your head.
I don't listen to these names because I don't think it is the first thing that pops into my head.
It's the first thing that popped in my head. I'm scarred. I'm broken. I'm bruised.
Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley, Mario Cristobal, Dan Lanning, Billy Napier, Brent Venables, Mike Elko, not going to his current school, but going to a different school. Kalen DeBoer going to a different school. This was a wild coaching carousel.
Yeah, wild. Some really good ones in there and some really bad ones in there.
Marcus Freeman. Sonny Dykes, who took his team to the national title game in year 1. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah. So, okay. So who's the worst? Are we just going to say Billy Napier because he's going to get fired? Like, is that what's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, look, there is a Hail Mary chance he could keep his job. It would require them to play very well against some really good teams. And DJ Lagway to just be off the charts amazing.
Which is possible, by the way.
It is. He's really good. Or he's going to be really good. But my suspicion is that Kirby Smart has 2 weeks to scheme up a freshman quarterback. That usually doesn't end well. So we'll see. We'll see how everybody feels about that after the Georgia game. Brent Venables, he's not getting fired, but obviously people are not huge fans of Brent Venables right now in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Lincoln Riley. That's the thing. The 3 hires of the power conference schools, the 3 hires that we're talking about as negative are Lincoln Riley, Billy Napier, and Brent Venables. And that's it.
And you know what is so crazy?
Everyone else is either neutral or very positive.
It's like so easy for me to sit here in my cozy little office on Wednesday night and like criticize that hire, but it's like those were all slam dunks. Like at the time, like,
yeah, they didn't know. They didn't know exactly.
The thing that is so interesting to me about just hires in general is like, can you really give USC flack for doing that?
No,
it's like Nebraska
hiring Scott Frost. Not one of us said a negative word about Nebraska hiring Scott Frost when it happened. Not one. Nobody knew that was coming.
Like, and that's the thing. It's like process oriented versus results oriented. Like, and I understand that there are merits to both, right? Like, if you do something and it works, then you did a great thing. But like sometimes you do the right thing, and it doesn't pan out. And like also too, like with Brent Venables and Lincoln Riley, like they have contracts that will afford them the opportunity to turn it around. And there could be a world where Oklahoma is just awesome in 3 years. And Brent Venables is like, like you just, he'll be given the time to fix this, I think. I look back at like how I analyzed Jim Harbaugh for the first 5 years of his tenure there. And if it were up to me after year 5, I would have fired him. And then he won the national championship a few years later. So like that to me is like a lot of times too. It's like, well, until the story is written completely, like I think I would go with Billy Napier because it was a risk. They got him from a lower level.
Right.
I understand why they did it. I understand why they would hire him. I thought it was a good hire at the time, but it's not going to work out probably. So like that one's an easy layup. I also just like cannot like get upset or fire off dragon breath takes on USC like hiring Lincoln Riley as if they didn't just try like hell to pay this guy $10 million a year to revamp their program. Like in terms of process, it's like having pocket kings on the turn and then going all in and getting called down by queens and then a queen coming on the river. Like, did you make the bad play by going all in?
No.
And having the best hand, but it just didn't work. It doesn't mean that you were stupid for doing it. So like that, like there is, and trust me, I've had a lot of days in the casino where I've done the right thing at a poker table and wound up losing. So like, I think I might have a higher temperament for understanding how that goes. But like, I don't view like Oklahoma or USC in a negative light for trying with these guys. I just hope they figure it out.
Well, let me give you the guys I said, because I split them into categories. I didn't rank them numerically because some of these are fairly even. But the currently looking great category, listen to this murderer's row. Dan Lanning, Brian Kelly, Mario Cristobal, and here's one, Rhett Lashley.
Mm-hmm.
Rhett Lashley won the American last year and is currently undefeated in conference play in year 1 in the ACC.
Yeah, like, Rhett Lashley is going to be a person who comes up this year, right, in the coaching carousel world. Like, is he like? What are the odds that he is SMU's coach next year? Is it high or low?
I'd say even, because it would depend on the right job. Because now it's an ACC job, so it's not as likely that he leaves as it would be if it was an American job. But yes, if the right SEC job, and the thing is, remember, Rhett Lashley is a Northwest Arkansas native. So if Sam Pittman, I think Sam Pittman's coached his way off the hot seat so far, But let's say they went and lost to Mississippi State this weekend and everything just fell apart. Like, then maybe.
He did coach at Miami for a while.
Home. Yeah.
And I don't know how much this matters, if at all, but like, is there a team in the city that you live in that might be interested in Rhett Lashley?
That's a good question, because he is an ACC coach now, though they probably would like, I could just see them like, oh no, he's a group of 5 coach. He's not a group of 5 coach. He's not, but I could see that. So, but I do think we talked earlier in the show about there will be coaches who figure out how to win with this generation of players. Rhett Lashley just may be one of those guys. Like, I think that's entirely possible. Let me go with my favorite category of these hires. Here for a good time, not for a long time. Kalen DeBoer went 25-3 in 2 seasons at Washington and took them to the national title game and won the Pac-12. Like, that's a great hire. Like, whatever's going on in Alabama now, who cares? Like, Washington made a great hire.
It would be interesting too if like you did like 2 coaching carousel rungs of this question. It's like, who are the best and worst hires of the 2017 cycle, and who are the best and worst hires of the 2021 offseason? And like, a coach was the best of the 17 and then worst of the 21. Like, it's like, because like all that stuff is all about fit and how you're doing.
Oh, well, the best hire of the after the 2014 season going into, after the 2015 season going into 2016, the best hire in hindsight was Scott Frost at UCF.
Yep. And then the worst hire. But like, it's like, was it the worst hire or was it the hire that ended up the worst? Like, it was the best hire at Nebraska that they possibly could have made. It just did not turn out well. So Kalen, the here for a good time, not for a long time. Kalen DeBoer, Mike Elko gets hired at Duke. Duke had gone 5-18 the previous 2 seasons, and Elko goes 17-9 in 2 seasons at Duke. Totally revamps the roster. Like, you knew he was going to be good wherever he went, and lo and behold, turns out he's pretty good at Texas A&M. The other one, and this is the only group of 5 hire that I included on this one, because I think we are going to really think highly of this guy as he goes forward. John Sumrall at Troy. He went 23-4 in 2 seasons at Troy. He's already doing really well at Tulane. They lost to K-State and Oklahoma, but Tulane is a good team. And he had to take over, when Willie Fritz left, there was a lot of restructuring to do. John Sumrall would have been Kentucky's coach had Mark Stoops gotten the A&M job. Had the A&M Regents not revolted, said, we're not hiring that guy, and then they went on to Elko. But Sumrall would have been Kentucky's coach. And like the whole, like, Florida wants Lane Kiffin. If Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss, wouldn't be shocked if John Sumrall was Ole Miss's new coach. Like, that's how highly everybody thinks of that guy. So hey, this was just a murder's row. Marcus Freeman is the only guy I couldn't put in a category, because I've got Tony Elliott and Sonny Dykes and Joey McGuire kind of in the they're doing fine. They might need to do a little better, but they're doing fine. Brent Pry is in that category too. Marcus Freeman I put in his own category called Ask Again After Saturday. Because like, there's no shame if you're a pretty good team and losing to this Navy team. But if you're Notre Dame, you're supposed to win this game. The thing that I think is so funny about Marcus Freeman specifically, Andy, is that like it keeps changing every week. Like, who the best and worst hire is of the 2022 offseason when it comes to which side of the fence Marcus Freeman is on, just what week. I mean, shit, right now it's going well.
It's going great.
If they lose to Navy on Sunday, then what?
NIU, Marshall, Stanford, 10 men on the field against Ohio State. Like, all of that stuff also adds up. And if it adds up too many times, then you got a problem. But he gets him in the playoff this year, he's fine. And then everything just sort of keeps going along swimmingly. So again, ask me again after Saturday. Let's do another question. This is from Forge. I thought this was a really interesting question. Michigan won last year's championship by running the ball and playing lights out on defense, especially on the line of scrimmage. In previous 2 years, Georgia was similar. Is it crazy to say that the only teams I see following this championship formula are Tennessee and Ohio State?
Can you go first, please?
I just put your brain in a pretzel, didn't I?
Yeah. Just go first. Let me think.
I actually think Oregon runs the ball fairly well too, and their D line is pretty good. Like Mateo Uyunglele is freaking awesome on Oregon's D line. So
yeah,
I think they might also kind of fit into this. It's interesting because in the written version of Dear Andy, I got a question, and I wasn't using it on the video, but I got a question about, is it a problem that Georgia's passing more than they're running? And this is the first time in a long time that Georgia is a higher percentage throw team than run team. They're throwing the ball 56% of the time. So like even Georgia doesn't fit into this category. Tennessee, I don't think wants to be in this category. I think Tennessee would like to be throwing the ball more. They would like for Nico to be hitting open receivers more often and having huge,
but you also lean on your best
chunk
player
plays through the air,
right? You also lean on your best player,
and Dylan Sampson's their best player, yeah, or their best offensive player,
yeah,
because their best player is probably James Pierce.
Yeah, that's true. No one's better than James Pierce. I think you nailed it.
So I think that's a really interesting take, and I hadn't thought about it that way, but it is probably true. I think Tennessee needs to be able to score more, though. That like they need to be hitting some of those open receivers so they can win in a shootout. Like Tennessee and Georgia both, I'm a little concerned about their ability to win in a shootout, because like the one time Georgia's defense faltered was first half of the Alabama game, and they couldn't come back. And even though Carson Beck threw the hell out of the ball in that game, the Texas game, their defense set that up. The offense wasn't playing particularly well until the end of the game. So the scoring drives before the 89-yarder in the fourth quarter that iced the game, Georgia's scoring drives were 13, 13, 34, 25, and 4 yards. Like they were not moving the ball effectively. The defense was just setting them up to punch it in. So
I know Georgia mauled Texas in that game, but the more I look at that
defensively,
box score, yeah, but the more I look at that, and like honestly, you can't take away the defensive opportunities that created the short field, but like every single one of Georgia's drives,
I'm just saying, what if Texas plays better offensively?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Georgia have the horses to keep up if they play again?
That's what I was going to say is that like Texas like gave them the game. Like I mean, they just gave them short fields over and over and over again. I'm going to throw one at you that we are talking about, that we could be talking about on Sunday. A&M.
Agreed. Connor Wegman, and I think for them to get to the playoff, it has to be because Connor Wegman diversified that offense, made them more dangerous through the air and less one-dimensional. But they're also really good at running the ball, and they're really good at getting after your quarterback, but they also can stuff the run a little better. I feel like they're stuffing the run better than LSU, which is also great at getting after your quarterback. Ole Miss can stuff the run and get after your quarterback too, but Ole Miss can be torched through the air, as Garrett Nussmeier showed by throwing it over and over and over again in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I'm looking up the stats for one other team. Okay. And you know what? This is the 12-team era. We're going to throw some stuff out.
Yeah, go for it.
What about Iowa State?
Good defense.
They've got great skill players.
Yeah,
but they play
UCF is in that game because of Iowa State's offensive mistakes. You cut those out, that's a very different looking final score.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look at where Iowa State is nationally in rushing offense statistically. And
remember, Iowa State has two highly dynamic receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, Iowa State still is in the top 40 nationally in rushing. But they are I view Iowa State as a team that can move the sticks in multiple ways, but a Midwestern team that can play good defense, come up with big stops, and then also make huge explosive plays in the passing game when they're down. I think Iowa State's maybe a blend here. But I think
Iowa State gives up 5 yards a carry. That's the thing I'd be concerned about if they have to play. Let's say if they saw Penn State, if they saw Texas A&M, if they saw an Ohio State or a Tennessee, that's what I'd be concerned about if I were them. Mm-hmm. But everything else you said is 100% correct. They've got receivers that scare the hell out of you. Rocco Becht is a good quarterback.
I'm just trying to think of teams that are maybe in between 16 and 9 right now. That isn't just Georgia. Who are we forgetting for how they play? I don't know. Is Notre Dame in that discussion?
Notre Dame's interesting because it feels like Riley Leonard's gotten quite a bit better in the past few weeks.
He has.
I feel like he's much more comfortable in that offense now. Clemson, producer River says that's a really interesting one because their defense is lights out. Like even in the Georgia game, their defense was playing really well. They just kept giving Georgia more bites at the apple because the offense couldn't move the ball on Georgia's defense. The offense has moved the ball on everybody else. Now, it might be a function of the schedule, but I think the offense is better than at the beginning of the season.
It isn't quite as Michigan-y, but like, what about the most obvious one, which is Penn State?
That's what I was thinking. I mentioned that with if Penn State saw Iowa State, I imagine Penn State would just try to keep it on the ground and take advantage of that. I do think Penn State needs to be more dynamic through the air. Now, I think Tyler Warren allows them to do that to an extent. But I still think one of the receivers needs to help stretch things. But this is my worry about Georgia right now. Is there's no Brock Bowers, no Ladd McConkey. There's really nobody who's replaced them as that game breaker, field stretcher, just scares the crap out of you. Got to find him at the start of every play. And they also aren't running the ball as well as they usually do. The last 3 seasons, they've averaged over 5 yards a carry. They're in the 4.5 yard range right now. So I do wonder if Roderick Robinson can come back because he averaged 8.2 yards a carry as a freshman, but he had surgery before the season on a turf toe, and they keep listing him as questionable. So I do wonder if they got him back, would that change the math on the run? Because with Georgia, it's the run game not being as good, along with the passing game not being as explosive as it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is so interesting. There's so many different scenarios, and I love these different matchups these theoretical matchups that we're coming up with, because like Iowa State, that John Haycock defense, it's the one everybody's copied. Like everybody in the sport has stolen aspects of that defense. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really, really interesting situation. All right, one more question. We'll close with this one. It comes from Crawford. Am I the only person hoping to see the Georgia-Vanderbilt rivalry revived in Atlanta? That's right. These two teams played every year in the divisional era of the SEC. They are not scheduled to face one another this year. What is the path for Vandy? Like, Vandy has to beat Texas this week, right? Hand Texas lost number 2 in the league, and then they have to beat Tennessee. But like, if Vandy ran the table, Vandy's in the SEC championship game. Maybe it depends on what happens with LSU and A&M, right?
I think if Vandy ran the table, I don't know mathematically if they control their own destiny. I'd have to look closer at it. But like my prediction would be right now, they would be the number 1 seed in the playoff. Look at that schedule. They beat the crap out of Virginia Tech. They beat Alabama. They would have beaten Texas, LSU, and Tennessee. Then the SEC championship game would be the greatest resume in the history of the sport.
Oh, they're in. Yeah, they're in.
They're one.
They're in.
Number 1.
I enjoy. And if you make it that way with that path, you can beat Georgia, like in a 1-game scenario.
Yeah. If they ever got to, if Vandy gets to Atlanta, here's my promise to you: I'm picking Vandy. Like, that's
100%.
Would they build a statue of Diego Pavia like in downtown Nashville? Like, are there statues of country musicians somewhere in that city they could put Pavia next to?
Well, those are on Music Row. I mean, you have to build a statue of Diego Pavia on the West End where Vandy is.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, no question about it. But what a question! Like the beauty of this. Oh wait, I gotta find this other question. I didn't include it, and I don't know why I didn't include it in the ones I sent you guys. But I'm gonna find it right now because it is funny. It's a call. It's from Jeff. So this is a callback to something I said in a previous mailbag show. This is an incredible question from Jeff that you are going to hear it and you're going to say, this is so easy. And we get to the end and you're like, nope, this is really hard. Andy, you win $100 million if you can pick 4 programs, one from each Power 4 conference as of next season, that you are confident will not make the 12-team playoff in its first 20 editions. One team from your 4 makes it, you lose. Which 4 are you taking? My producer, River, with the photo on the question card. Well, that's the obvious one. We're definitely taking Vanderbilt. I'm confident that Vanderbilt will not make the 12-team playoff in the first 20 years. And first of all, are we sure it's going to go for 20 years? The last one only went for 10. So are we positive? But let's say it does go for 20 years. I'm confident Vanderbilt won't make it. Go to the Big Ten. I have 2 schools here that I feel very confident will not make it. Indiana or Rutgers. You can pick either one. I don't think they'll make it. So we'll go with Indiana. So if we have to pick one, we'll go with Indiana. So I feel very confident so far. Hey, Andy and Ari. Andy, many, many months ago, I asked what Power 4 schools you'd be willing to bet a lot of fake money on to never make the 12-team playoff in the next 20 seasons. Indiana was your choice for the Big Ten, and Vanderbilt was your choice for the SEC. Is college football amazing right now or what?
That's funny. It's true.
It's incredible. He's right. I did say that, and I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those were the layup picks. Everybody would have said that. You're not stupid. It's just this is crazy. Yeah. What a day. What a day.
I've never been so happy to be wrong. I cannot wait to see what else happens this week. One undefeated team has already gone down. I said at least 2 would go down this week. There's another one playing tonight. Syracuse plays Pitt. So my Wendy's sauciest take of the week was that at least 2 undefeated teams will lose this week. Liberty has already lost. Can Pitt survive the night? We'll find out. We'll talk to you later. All right.